What's up, everybody? Hope you're having a lovely weekend. Today, many altcoins are continuing to move to the upside. We talked about a bunch of setups on my last video, and a few of them have started to break out. So today, I want to give you an urgent update and look through some of the most time-sensitive altcoin charts right now and look at some of the setups that I am eyeing into the beginning of next week. I'm also going to give you my full framework as to what I'm doing in terms of managing my risk right now. I know a lot of people are asking in the comments from last video, Miles, do you think it's too late to be entering coins? Do you think this is a good zone to be taking profits? Well, I've come up with a full framework to make sure that you can manage risk whilst only getting exposure to the upside of the market. Our goal as investors and traders is to get exposure to the upside during these uptrends, which we are currently in, at least on the lower time frames, whilst minimizing our downside in case the market turns. Because although this is a very encouraging move, and although this is a great Bitcoin breakout, you don't know what will happen, especially with this environment, with Trump and all the tariff talks. You don't really know what's going to happen in this current environment, which is quite shaky. So it's best to have a plan which can protect you in both directions. But definitely the market is very excited at the moment, and for good reason, because it's the biggest relief rally we've had since the downtrend. So let's talk about some of the opportunities at hand, because there are quite a lot of opportunities at hand with Bitcoin now sitting comfortably above 100K. I'll keep this video concise. I'll keep it short. I want you guys to enjoy your weekend, but I also want you to keep an eye on some of these setups because some of them are time sensitive, especially heading into early next week. All right, let's quickly look at Bitcoin. We're above 100K. This is the clear line in the sand for Bitcoin. We'll touch on that in a couple of minutes here and how that affects my trading strategy. But as long as we hold above 100K, I guess you could say that is your macro line in the sand or lights on level for Bitcoin. And there's no signs that it's going to slow down in the short term. However, if you do have a look at this chart here, which is actually an inverse Bitcoin chart, this just gives you a little bit of perspective. I always find it really interesting looking at the inverse charts because they give you like another look at the market, and it does appear like we are reaching a bottom zone retest, which in this case would be a retest of the Bitcoin high if you want to flip it to be a bullish chart. Overall, the Bitcoin trend does look bearish if you want to look at it like this. It's a clear downtrend. So if you invert it, clearly that's clear uptrend for Bitcoin. But this just gave me a little bit of perspective looking at this today, because it does show us that Bitcoin looks like it really does want to keep going and following this trend, because you could see here once again on the inverted chart you have lower highs, another lower high, you're making more lower lows. Like, this looks like a classic downtrend, which kind of gives me some hope that we could see Bitcoin all-time highs, and we could see a bigger run later into the end of the year. I did a tweet before, if you follow me on Twitter here, where I outlined my macro plan and my general macro framework. This is a gun to my head kind of situation, because you can never exactly say what's going to happen longer term, but I thought I'd mention it in today's video. My rough macro framework is that we're going to get a Bitcoin all-time high later this year. Now, we may very well breach 110K sooner, but I'm talking about, the actual high of the year later in either Q3 or Q4. This is something I've been consistent with on the channel. If you watch my videos from a few weeks ago, this is kind of been my general framework for quite some time now. Then I think we're probably going to see an ugly beginning to 2026 as the economy starts to weaken. Potentially we head into a recession. The Fed will obviously be pivoting by then. However, the markets are going to be accepting some harsh realities after a big blow off. This doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin will go into a huge bear market. I just think after making a new yearly high later in the year, you'll probably see a bit of a sell-off, and that's likely to happen in the beginning of 2026 based on my framework, right, with the current macro situation. However, of course, that can change. I just thought I'd present my general thinking to you today based on the current information. And then I think we see a second Bitcoin run, potentially an even bigger run to a new blow off at the end of 2026. So I think the beginning of the year could be in for a little bit of pain. And then once quantitative easing kicks back in and the effects of the positive liquidity cycle start to be embedded into the market, that's when I think once liquidity starts flowing, you could see that secondary run into Bitcoin and risk assets. So this is my general framework, but of course, in today's video, we're going to focus on more of the shorter term plan, and that all revolves around these key levels for Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is 100K on Bitcoin and 2K on Ethereum. But just going back to this inverse Bitcoin chart before we get into my playbook regarding altcoins, it does, although it looks like, Bitcoin wants to make lower lows, which would obviously be great, it does look like we are reaching a significant zone of interest, so support on this chart, and obviously on the real chart, resistance. So do keep in mind that I do think we see some sort of reaction to this level, so that will likely result in Bitcoin maybe coming and having a pullback and another retest of 100K potentially. I do think this could happen over the coming days or weeks, so just keep that in mind. And when we get through into my altcoin framework now, it'll make a lot of sense what I'd actually be doing in that situation. So Deebs asked me a question in the comments. He's a creator that I really respect on X. He said, do you think it's time to turn aggressive? I said, not necessarily turn aggressive. Time to be super aggressive in terms of buys was at 75K. That's when I made my biggest buys of the year on Bitcoin. But open to risk? Yes. As long as we hold, that's where the framework comes in. And this is the framework I'm about to go into now. So the first thing I want to establish when going into this framework is that there are two major line in the sand levels, one for Bitcoin, one for alts, which is based on Ethereum. The line in the sand for Bitcoin is 100K. This is a massive psychological support and resistance zone. I feel like every single day that we hold above 100K, the more faith people have in the market, the more psychological faith it gives people that 100K is a floor. And once the market starts pricing in 100K as a floor, I feel like only then is it free to move higher to 110, 120, 150 eventually, 200 eventually, right? But it really needs to put in that floor. And in previous times, it didn't manage to do that. It only managed to hold above for 2 weeks before retracing. So what I want to see here is Bitcoin actually hold its floor for a number of weeks. That's going to be super important. But the longer it holds above, every single day that it holds above, I think the more faith the market actually garners. And that's why this 100K level for Bitcoin is my line in the sand level. So to really simplify the market for you, I think you can be open to longs and open to long continuation opportunities on alts as long as Bitcoin's above 100K. If Bitcoin starts dropping below 100K, you shift from shorter term long continuation opportunities to potentially mid to long-term structural investing accumulation opportunities on big dips. What do I mean by that? Well, there are lots of uptrending altcoins right now, which we'll get into the framework. You can get into as long as we are in a risk-on environment, but those trades don't necessarily make as much sense if Bitcoin starts to go back into a downtrend or exhibit some weakness below this 100K zone. Then what you're looking for is probably a deeper pullback, let's say a bigger flush to 90K, where you could stack up on some long-term altcoins. I don't think this is the zone, especially as we're heading into a little bit of Bitcoin resistance here, and it's also evident on this inverse chart here, to be loading up on long-term alts as investments. I said this on yesterday's show, although you can definitely look at long opportunities and it is the time to be receptive to those opportunities, I don't think this is the time to be laddering into long-term investments, at least not in my opinion, because what I like to do is buy extreme fear in markets. So unless we are seeing a major retrace, that would be the opportunity, I think, to load up on longer term investment stuff. If not, I'll just trade level to level on each specific altcoin. Now, when I am trading level to level, this is basically how I would do it. Presuming Bitcoin's above 100K and then also Ethereum above 2K. These are the two major psychological zones. So step one, I would long strong alts on pullbacks. You want to work out what the strongest alts are from a technical and a fundamental perspective. We're going to get into them, into some of them later in today's video. Some actually look really good right now, but the number one thing you want to do is play the coins with the strongest mind share and the strongest propensity to pump when the market catches a bid. You want to be doing this on pullbacks, and the indicator that I'm really enjoying using at the moment is the money noodle, which is in the Miles High Club, and this is the noodle that you'd be longing. So Virtual is an example I'll speak about later, where it's actually, since its breakout on the 22nd of April, been adhering to the money noodle. Every single time we get a pullback into this zone, I would look to be bidding. So this is a simple momentum trend indicator that you can look to bid if we do get down there. And then if we close below, like we did here, you you can invalidate and get back in on a breakout to make sure you're not risking too much capital. What I like as well is when the money noodle, and you can use the 200 MA on the daily, whatever moving indicator you do like, but we've curated this because I like the way it reacts to levels. Paradise actually created it, and since then I've adopted his strategy. I also like when there's confluence with the horizontal, as you can see here, because then you have 2 key levels to play off. These are even better as well when you have the stochastic RSI resetting. As you can see below, this is a system that Paradise teaches in the Discord when you have the H1 demand, noodle, and alongside a stochastic RSI reset as well. So what you can basically do is every time there's a major pullback, you can bid into key high time frame levels. Now, what you don't want to be doing is bidding into breakdowns. So this is a bid here, right? This is even a bid here. That's your second DCA into this major support. This is on the 4 hourly, but if you start closing below, then you don't want to be bidding and catching a falling knife. You only want to be looking at bidding altcoins, and I'm using this as an example because it has a good chart to show you, but Fartcoin would be another example, right? If I go into Fartcoin, pull up the chart here, go into the 4 hour, or maybe even the 1 hour looks better. Another 4 hour makes a little bit more sense. You can see how it's uptrending, right? This has been a really strong coin in the market. This is one where you can define your key levels. So this is a key level of interest for the coin, and then this is another key level of interest for the coin. You can basically bid these levels, and every time there's a pullback, you can take advantage of those pullbacks to get in, and then hopefully what happens is there's a reaction. So let's say, as you can see here, there's confluence with the moving average and the horizontal support level. If it goes into this zone, hopefully you get a bounce, and then your stop would have been around here previously under this wick, but then as soon as there's a bounce, you can raise your stop up to above your entry. So this is what a trending trade looks like, right? So then when the market keeps running to the upside, basically you can keep moving your stop up and up and up below the previous lows, and that way you can basically ride the trend, and then eventually you'll get stopped out, but you'll be in heavy profits by then. So that is what we call long continuation trading, and you're going to see many of these setups across the market as the market starts to reverse. And then you also have breakout trading as well. But a very good strategy is, you've got 2 things. You can either bid the breaks. So this is an example of a breakout zone that you can bid, or you can bid the pullbacks. And I think bidding the pullbacks is the best way to go as long as they maintain structure. You just don't want to be continuing to bid if they're breaking structure, right? You want to only bid if they're adhering to structure. So that is step number 2. Step number 3 is invalidation. So if you do get invalidated on a trade, so let's say you bid let's say Fartcoin at this level, right? And it just keeps going down and you get invalidated. That's fine. Let it chop and do its thing. And then when it reclaims a key level, then you can bid again. And then you can take a second stab or a second bite at the cake and see if you can get long continuation on that entry. Sometimes, and as long as your stops are only 5, 10, 15%, it might take 3 or 4 entries to actually get into a winning trade, but that's basically the cost of admission. Once you're in a good entry, if the market continues to trend upwards, you're in a really strong position to take advantage of that. Now, this is only for coins that are actually respecting their levels. For coins that aren't respecting their levels and are just chopping in and out of the noodle and just chopping in and out of the horizontal levels, then obviously don't play them. You only want to be playing things that are respecting price action and follow step 1, which is having a strong mix of fundamentals and technicals. Fundamentals being mindshare. I think Fartcoin's a good example of this. One coin that I'm about to mention in a minute is a great example of this. I actually think it's a very underrated coin at the moment. And you also want that to align with technicals. And some projects that I'm going to even show you today, they haven't aligned with technicals yet, but they will soon. I think there's a major importance right now of having your watch list set up. What I would do is I would have a watch list on TradingView for setups, and I would actually tag them active trades, and then I would tag other coins colors for potential trades, and then I would tag other ones as cold trades. And what this means is red, they may have already broken out, and you can also put text there to make it even easier to see. Yellow, they might be about to break out or starting to break out. And then green might be the coins that haven't made a move at all, but you think they will in the future, or you think they tick one of these boxes, so they look good fundamentally, but they don't look technically. But you still want to set alerts on those coins and really have your watch list set, because right now we're in a bit of a popcorn. Can't even speak right now. It's very late, but I really want to make this video. Right now we're in a bit of a popcorn market, where Popcoin would be a good coin. I would long that coin. Where, Fartcoin will run, and then someone will chase a beta play and that'll run, and then another beta play will run. So you don't really know what's going to run. That's why it's just good to have your list set and have your levels set, so you're not missing a trade in the market. I think a lot of trading just comes down to organization, especially in markets like this. If you are expecting a continued uptrend, then it doesn't really matter exactly how you long. If you get an exact entry, or if you're really precise with the indicators, it doesn't really matter. You can basically long at any level and you'll probably end up making money, but you really need to be organized to make sure that you're not missing trades, and to make sure that you're just aware of when price action turns, because it's one thing being in a long, it's another thing protecting yourself against round tripping, because things could keep running to Wednesday, and then Trump could blast some news and then the market could turn. You really want to be prepared to have an invalidation and a stop loss, so you don't lose your money in that eventuality. And as I mentioned before, if the coin keeps moving higher, you can just keep raising your stop into profit. So to just recap on the strategy, and then we'll get into the exact coins, I'm basically looking at longing the strongest altcoins on pullbacks, also reclamations. That is another scenario. For example, Celestia here, I would potentially long on a reclamation of this trend, and then second entry on this trend. Actually, you already got an entry here at the low, but my next two entries will come at these levels. That's a reclamation trade. And then the other scenario, as I mentioned in this tweet, is coins that pump, then looking to get in on major pullbacks into key levels as long as they haven't broken structure. So maybe back down into this pocket, and then you can play the next leg to the upside. I'll get into why I actually like Celestia in a minute as a trade, and why I'm actually in a long at the moment. So this is my playbook. As long as Bitcoin's above 100 and ETH is above 2K, I am following this playbook. Now, I do want to address a couple of comments before I move on to the exact altcoins. Some people are saying, "Oh, but Miles, a few weeks ago you said that you were 50% stables." Well, I'm still around 50% stables, because right now most of my focus is on trading. So because I have a larger stable base, what I'm actually able to do in this market is go in and out of opportunities as I see fit. Because I still don't want huge structural exposure to the market right now, because I'm not sure about the macro environment, I just prefer to play this game during the lights on modes like we are at the moment in the shorter term, instead of trying to preemptively predict how the market will eventuate over the coming months. I gave you my prediction before, but I don't really like trading in these medium-term windows in terms of holding like a bunch of spot altcoins. Now, of course I do. I hold lots of robotic stuff, I hold AI stuff, I hold RWA stuff, but I am trying not to cross that 50 to 60% threshold in terms of holdings versus cash, because I do want to make sure I can hold enough stables right now to actually go in and out of a lot of these opportunities. So I think this is like a bit of a misconception in the market. People think you need to be fully exposed to get exposure to the upside. Like, no, you could have 100% in stables right now, literally 100% in USDT, but as long as your watch list was organized, and as long as you are paying attention to opportunities and what's happening in the market by, being in the Discord, watching these shows, as long as you know what coins to have on your radar, and going to give you a creator that you need to be watching right now because they've been calling stuff amazingly later in today's video, then you're going to do well, irrespective of whether you're exposed to the market or not. Because with that 100% stables, you can go in with 20%, compound it, and you've just made 20% on your cash net, even without full exposure to the market. And then when the market turns, you're a little bit more protected. So I guess it just depends how you trade. I don't have anything against, people that want to keep 80% of their portfolio in alts and just hold spot and then just manage it like that. That's fine. I don't dislike the strategy of having 100% stables either. I think having 100% stables and having a complete blind eye to risk on environments like this, I think is a bit dumb. but having 100% stables and then using that to trade during the lights on environments actually could be quite smart. I know a lot of traders that do that, even in our Discord. So I take the middle ground approach. I'm smack bang in the middle. I'm 50% exposed and then 50% not exposed, and I use that to trade with. And that's where I personally find myself most comfortable. And I'm still able to make, a lot of money when the market conditions are good. Like this past week has been one of my best trading weeks of the year. And there are still many opportunities presenting. So hopefully we can compound that into 2 amazing trading weeks of the year. So one thing I do want to note is that a lot of the altcoins that have been running aggressively here are the altcoins that were the most heavily shorted. This is something I actually pointed out on March 17th, that we're probably going to see a lot of short squeezes across the market. Now, of course, first we had that big tariff fake out. That's when I made the video about making my biggest Bitcoin buys ever. And now we are starting to see those squeezes happen now that the market's recovering. So it's no surprise that these are the biggest movers, because they're also the ones where market makers and market participants were net short. Now, on the daily, WIF's actually the one that's the most up, and this is one on yesterday's show that I actually called as one of my favorite trades. I also shared it in the Discord very early, where I said WIF, this is the daily chart, money noodle and trend shift is good. This was when it was just consolidating below the 72-cent level. Now it's pushing past the 87-cent level. So this is a trade I'm in, doing really, really well so far. And if you watch yesterday's video, if you're in the Discord, you also should have been alerted to this trade. So that's been a very good one. Now let's get into some of the other setups I am watching. The first one is Celestia that I hinted at before. I think this is a bit of a dark horse, as Andy points out, as one of the L1 trades for the rest of the cycle or the next few months, however you want to put it. You can actually see that their market share by daily posted data in terms of data availability, which is obviously Celestia's value prop, has been increasing significantly versus Ethereum. And actually at one point it was like 80% of the market, but it's still above the 50% threshold. So the network's actually being utilized, which I like, but not a lot of people are talking about it. Obviously it had a lot of dilution. Obviously there was disappointment around airdrops and staking, which resulted in a major sell-off. But I do think we are in an environment where, with Ethereum pricing upwards, Solana pricing upwards, all the other L1s are pricing upwards, and there aren't that many good L1s, but after Solana, Sui, and Ethereum, I think there's a big gap to the next big one, and an extremely beat down Celestia and heavily shorted Celestia, which fundamentally is quite strong, which is now starting to turn technically. This is a good setup for me. That's why I laddered in a third of my position at the lows here. On the confirmed money noodle flip, I'll load in another 30%, and at this level, I'll load in another 30%, and I'll make sure I raise my stop into profit as price keeps going up. I think this is a decent setup, and you can also draw it as a breakout like this if that's how you prefer to trade. I think this is a decent move that could take us to $5-6 on Celestia, and this is one of the short to mid-term L1s that I'm in, both from a spot perspective and a perps perspective. So keep that one on your radar. I'm already up 41% on the leverage side of things, and also a little bit less, but I think 20 to 30% up on that, on the spot position that I took from the lows. But this is like just started. So this very small move is what made me that 40%, because I was 5x leveraging the bottom here, but just now as it starts to break out is when you should see acceleration, and that's where you can make the most money on the trade. So that's one that I'm in. Just to recap Paradise's trades, he is up 60% on virtual, 35% on Fartcoin. These are actually spot trades, which is pretty insane. So if you are in the Discord, you would have caught these trades. He's been absolutely killing it. He's actually sick right now, and he's still smashing it on the trades, turbo as well. So shout out to Paradise, being sick but still smashing it in the Discord. Those were two of the recaps from the last 24 hours, but a trade that he recently highlighted that he's just looking at getting into, and you need to see exactly where it sits now because this was a few hours ago, is this trade here on NEIRO. NEIRO's a coin that's started to garner a little bit of hype, and I think maybe we could see continuation across some of these like memes that are like almost peanut betas, like the old Mudang betas, like the old memes that got Binance listings that were heavily shorted. So you got NEIRO. I mean, you can even maybe put Broccoli, CZ's dog coin on Binance into that category. I think some of these coins are the ones that can move higher aggressively. And all you really need to do is just play the pullbacks. Paradise has this strategy, as you can see here, which combines the retests of the money noodle on H1. He also looks for the FVGs alongside stochastic RSI reset. He basically trains this stochastic in line with noodle retest strategy, and it's very simple to learn. It's in the Discord in our educational resources section. He also does 2 live mentorships per week to teach this. And in a market like this, it's extremely profitable. So this is the kind of market where you want to look at these long continuation strategies. So that's quite a good one. Just keep your eye on NEIRO and some of those other coins as well. Fartcoin I mentioned before. This is one where you can also play continuation. We have the RSI resetting. So on the 4 hourly, it doesn't really respect noodle that much on the hourly. So when you see chop like this, it is a little bit harder to trade. But I would be looking at this level where we've seen it respect quite a few times recently at $1.20 as your potential bid zone. Just keep your eye on that if we do get a pullback across the market. WIF, as I mentioned before, this is another good one, mentioned at 72 cents yesterday. It's now at 87. I think we might see a bit of a pullback here. That could be an opportunity to get in, and then, $1.40 is your next level on WIF. This one I think is going to move to $1. I continue to increase my size on this, but my next buy will be on the next dip. Ansem is kind of back shilling WIF as well. So a lot of the memes that were hot and, the creators kind of went quiet, they're now starting to heat back up again, and Ansem's now pushing WIF again. So, the way the attention economy works on X probably means that some of these does quite well. Now, I mentioned earlier I would reference a creator to keep your eye on, and at the moment it's Bonk Guy. Uni picks. He's absolutely been smashing it recently. He's had some crazy trades. He's gotten a lot of clout recently for just nailing the lows on a lot of these memes, and these are multi-million-dollar trades that he is sharing transparently, like up 1.1 million on PNUT. Pretty much any coin he's mentioning now is mooning, so definitely put notifications on for him and keep an eye on what he's trading. I'm actually messaging him at the moment to come on the YouTube show, so we might do a show together, and hopefully we can give you some exclusive alpha that he's not sharing with this huge Twitter following. Maybe we can squeeze some alpha out of him, because he's definitely one worth watching. He's kind of almost taken over from Murad and Ansem's the top meme guys. I know he's saying he has respect for them here, but that's what a lot of the people in the market are saying. So we'll run with the narrative. But a lot of the coins he's pushing, if you just go through his feed, these are some of the ones that are doing really strong. Obviously, PNUT, that one did really well. He's talking about HOSICO. I'm not just saying go ape these, but these are ones to have on your watch list and ones to trade. He'll be revealing more as well. Simon's Cat he's in. So these kind of coins he's in. Now, I want you to remember something before I head off here, just heading into next week. The first thing I want you to remember is that regardless of whether altcoins maintain their recent momentum, as XO says, the past few days have revealed valuable insights into early capital flows and leading alts with strong volume. Even if the gains retrace in the coming months, their initial strength makes them worth watching and potentially accumulating if the market rallies later this year. So even if this ends up being a fake out, I hope it's not, but even if it is, the market has showed you its hand. It showed you which coins it wants to bid. So the meta of the heavily shorted coins that still have mind share, that have major exchange listings, these are the coins that moon the hardest when the market comes back. So even if these rallies are faded, these are the coins you want to be accumulating. And as Inadev Crypto points out, a few of these, aside from the memes, which obviously are WIF, PEPE, GOAT, House, Fartcoin, Hype, Tau, Sol, Sui, Kita. Obviously, there are a few more as well, which I've talked about. Virtuals has done really well, and over the next few days, you're going to see a few more that perform well. Hopefully, my tier trade kicks on. This is one that I hope also does well. There's also one more I shared yesterday, but it's actually pulling back now, that I think is worth mentioning. It's NILLION. This is a new launch. It's like an AIL1. This has nice confluence here if you look at the 4 hour and 8 hour of the money noodle and this horizontal support zone. So if we get a pullback into this zone, maybe Sunday or Monday, I would look at bidding that zone as well. So any pullbacks into major support, as long as Bitcoin is above 100K, are for buying, in my opinion. And the last point that I want you to remember is what Dan says here. The real test for altcoins will come next week. It's been pretty clear that the most shorted coins got squeezed, including ETH, the hardest, and caused crazy moves this week. Especially some of these previously dead memes got squeezed a 2 to 4x in a matter of days, just because there was so much short demand for in these coins. It's easy for price to move up when a squeeze gets going. What happens after the shorts are squeezed is what's important for the mid to long term following it. And that's why I'm saying this isn't a full-blown bull yet, because we need to see actual spot demand coming in for alts, and that's what the early next week's really going to tell us. We'll know early next week whether this move is legit or not. Either way, we've got the technical framework I pointed out today to trade off, but we're really going to learn a lot early next week. As Dan says, you'll need to see sufficient spot bidding to maintain prices at these levels and keep pushing higher. For some coins, that equilibrium sits higher than others. For example, ETH likely sees more spot demand after a breakout than some forgotten meme coin that just 4x due to shorts getting squeezed. In terms of ETF flows, there have been none for ETH this week, so there's still little demand there as we speak. That would need to change for this move to sustain from these prices. For now, we just wait and see. He says I remain in my spot positions, which are BTC, ETH, RWA coins. We'll be waiting for a flush to monitor for long entries at some point. No rush either way. Yeah, that's exactly what I said earlier in the show. If you're long-term investing, I don't think there's a rush to ape in, but there's definitely some shorter-term trades which you can take advantage of as long as, the short-term lights-on mode is on. So that's basically my stance on the market. Those are some of the coins I'm watching. Tomorrow I'm releasing a very cool video. It's an AI trading strategy which I've been working on. I've been doing a lot of research in that department, so that's a nice edited video that I've prepared for you that I think you're going to like. And then Monday we'll be back for another market update, so continuing with the daily uploads. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. I'll see you in the next one. Oh, and vlog is dropping as well tomorrow, I believe, on the vlog channel, so make sure you sub to the Miles Deutscher vlog channel. I'll see you in the next one. Have a lovely rest of your day. Peace.